Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Sandwich of Coherency. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So recently started a little series talking about, why the United States is going to be voting Republican straight through for the next 14 years. It's going to happen this year. It's going to happen in 2024. I mean, it's just going to keep happening. Presidential elections are going to be Republican 24, 28, 32. I mean, and it's just at the current rate that the United States is going, or what the White House administration is doing, there's really no other way around that. So let's just go ahead and jump into this real quick because I want to go ahead and just dive right into this. So we've got this piece from Fox and really lays it out, and that's what we're going to end up talking about.
Several Texas counties are getting ready to declare an invasion at the southern border, hoping to trigger part of the U.S. Constitution that makes the federal government responsible for protecting states against invasions. This comes as the United Nations just labeled the U.S.-Mexican border as the deadliest crossing in the entire world, after 53 migrants were found dead last week in a tractor trailer in San Antonio, Texas. And as the border crisis only worsens, the Biden administration doesn't seem to be taking any responsibility for it, instead blaming a host of other things, including climate change. Watch.
The migration that is occurring throughout the hemisphere is reflective of the economic downturn, increase in violence throughout the region, the result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the results of climate change.
David, the bottom line is these local and state governments, they feel abandoned by the federal.
So based on what you just heard, honestly, if you really look at this from the bigger picture, what you're finding is, and you've heard this, I know many of you have heard this for the past couple of years now, that the United States is not being invaded. The United States is being invaded, okay? You have the United Nations labeling the Mexico-U.S. border as the deadliest crossing in the world. Understand that there are people around the world crossing through war zones. Okay? Right now, with all the hubbub and all you hear about what's happening with the Ukraine and Russia and all this, crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, where there is no war going on, is the deadliest crossing, and people don't see that as a problem. These are the results of the policies of this administration. They say we're not being invaded, but what would you constitute as an invasion? How much more damage has to be done? When you had the first 12,000 Haitian migrants that came to the U.S. that they were supposed to stop, and somehow they just, when nobody was looking, let them all in. And then you had the next caravan of Haitian migrants coming towards the border that stated that they were willing to use violence. They were willing to shoot and kill to get their American dream. Does that not count as an invasion? When you have people coming from other nations across the border that are stating they're willing to use violence to enter the nation to get what they want, how is that not an invasion? When you have people dying from fentanyl, okay? Now, these are the largest overdoses over the past year or two in the United States. Fentanyl made in China, shipped to Mexico, coming up across the United States border. With that many Americans dying because of that, does that not count as an invasion? China knowingly doing this, being a part of this, let's be honest, we know what's happening here. Does that not count as an invasion to people? I mean, you have Americans being killed by cartel members in the United States. It's raining really hard outside right now, so you might hear a little bit of thunder, as it seems. But you have American citizens being killed by cartel members in the United States. Does that not count as an invasion? I mean, what more do people need? Let's think about the border crossing. Over 2 million crossings. We have damn near 1 million gotaways. These are people that we have no idea where they are in the United States. If I was a foreign country and I wanted to invade the United States, and I know that the president they have right now and the government they have in office is not enforcing the border, how many thousands of troops do you think you could get across before anybody recognized anything? How is this not an invasion? If you have 750,000 people around that you have no idea whom they are, but you know they crossed the southern border, you don't know whom or where they are in the United States. Why would a foreign government not have taken the chance to slip through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20,000 troops? We've had terrorists caught at the border that we know of, a little over 50 so far, but out of that damn near million gotaways, how many do you think are in that number? And so, the Biden's policies of compassion, as they say, we're caring for the migrants, we're trying to help them, actually they're making it worse. One of the things that people don't talk about is the problems of children being illegally adopted out of foreign nations. They're being smuggled out of Central American countries so that Americans and other foreigners can adopt. Like, take for instance Guatemala. Guatemala does not have an inter-country adoption program with the United States because children being kidnapped, smuggled to the United States. There are thousands upon thousands of parents who have no idea where their children are. And many of the parents out there that actually do find their children here in the States are unable to get their children back because it turns out the federal government does not do the paternity suits. So pretty much you have thousands of parents who know where their children are as well, but can't get them. They can never get them back. Some have. They've been lucky enough. But for the most part, most of them never come back. Like, this is a big problem with the migrants recently dying in that truck at the border and the driver not running the AC. Why didn't he run the AC? Because he didn't want to get noticed. Because it's a refrigeration truck. And if it was running, they would have checked the trailer. I believe they did find the guy somewhere here in the United States, apparently where they reside at. And they are pretty bad dudes. Can't remember what the report said fully about them, but they should not be in the United States to begin with. But apparently they had been caught before and had been released back into the nation. Why? Because they don't deport. Especially if you're in a sanctuary city. ICE is not allowed to work with local police to find out whom is who and to at least send the dangerous ones somewhere else. So what I want to get into is a little thing right here, and this is just a little article talking about it. This is from September 28th, 2021, and it's Migrants Return to Mexico Describe Horror of Kidnappings, Tortures, and Rape. In Reynosa, Mexico, after Gustavo and his family were sent back to Mexico after they crossed the U.S. border, his two sons said they were hungry. Gustavo, a Honduran man, sat them on the steps of the bridge and crossed the street to buy them something to eat. He remembers that a car approached him as he walked those steps. They put me in the car. The children stayed there, waiting for me, but I didn't come back. He was kidnapped. He had been kidnapped. Days later on the same bridge, Jorge Giovanni Diaz, also from Honduras, found himself holding hands with his son, who was 7, after the U.S. returned them to Mexico. Discouraged, he called their smuggler, or coyote. They were picked up in front of the International Bridge and taken to a bodega where almost 200 people, 200, were hoping to cross the river again. All of a sudden, armed men came in and violently took them all away. For this man and his child, 44 harsh days in captivity began. So when migrants arrive in these Mexican cities near the border, they're the targets of a vicious criminal business that kidnaps them and can torture them for weeks, extorting thousands of dollars or ransom from their relatives over the phone. Those who are kidnapped know that if they don't pay, the outstanding balances can end in death. And the cartels tend to make anywhere from $600 to $20,000 per capture. So we run into a situation now where they say that, we've heard the stories where sending them back is going to be dangerous. Like, it's a death sentence to send them back. And here's the problem. If the White House wasn't encouraging them to come to begin with, they wouldn't be in this situation. We have to find some way to do immigration reform. But having an open border policy is not beneficial to anybody at all. The United States cannot sustain that way. It is actually not sustainable. People want to think with their feelings and their emotions, and I understand that, because you want to be compassionate, but at the same time, you don't want to burn your own house down to see somebody else feel better. Like, that makes no sense. So the reality is that if the United States enforces its laws once people enter the country illegally, they run the risk of putting those people back at the risk of death. Why? Because they still have debt that they have to pay off. Can't pay it off, you got sent back. So these are problems. People are ending up losing their lives, and a lot of family structures are being broken apart, and a lot of lives are being torn apart, literally because of the policies of this administration, because they actually refuse to do anything to secure the border, to try and mitigate what's happening. It just will continually compound and getting worse. The United States cannot sustain, and it's looking at upwards of anywhere from 9 to 10 million people a year at this rate coming into the United States, and those are lowball estimates of what they're giving. If the White House administration continues with the type of policies that it has. Now, that's not exaggeration. We've gone over this in previous episodes. We've gone through the numbers. We've looked at the information even coming from the Department of Homeland Security, because a lot of that stuff does come from them. So these are their own numbers stating this, but in their opinion, everything is fine. And there's nothing to worry about here. And these things that they keep doing, these policies, are having an immediate effect on the United States. Like I said before, it's going to take 2 to 3 times as long to repair what's being done each year that Biden is in charge. But as I pointed out, with these policies and with the administration moving this way, and with many Democrats getting behind what they're doing, you will end up having most of the nation, even people who were never Republicans, are going to end up voting Republican, because it's starting to affect them. The honeymoon phase of it has worn off. The reality is sinking in, and now it's starting to touch people where it hurts, in their stomachs and their pockets. And this is what's going to drive them to vote Republican. And you have to see that with the Democrats doing all this extra work to even prevent Republicans from trying to run for office, this should tell you that they are very scared, and they have no policies to run on. Because if you paid attention to what they had to say, you realize that not only do they not have any policies, the only thing they have is race and gender. Race and gender. That's all they have. They can't tell you how they're going to feed people, how they're going to secure the nation, how they're going to protect the homeless, protect the veterans. But they can tell you all kinds of stuff about race and gender, because they think that that's what the nation is focused on, not putting food on the table to feed their families. So like I said, these policies will have everyone voting Republican all the way through. But we'll see how that goes starting in November. But I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.